Chapter 417, Finding a Sparring Partner. Translator, Dark Angel. Han kept only a tiny shard of that black rock, while he handed all the remainder to Small Tower for the latter's repairs. In the blink of an eye, the entire black rock crumbled into dust, and the chaos source within was wholly drawn out by Small Tower. He could not help thinking that if the Asura Demon Emperor were to step into the Black Tower, then even if he obtained an enormous piece of the primal chaos source rock and refined it into his own body, it would still be useless, for it would be absorbed completely and reduced to dust all the same. Ling Han did rush at once to the place where the crimson-red chilling ice grass grew. He was still only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier now, so he needed to wait a while longer. He decided he would go only after he broke through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he went now, he could only sit there and wait, and that simply did not suit Ling Han's nature. Thus, he and Hu Niu wandered through the forest. There were still many other spiritual herbs here, and since they still had time, why not search for some? Their harvest was quite abundant, yet after a few more days, most of the demonic qi here had dispersed, and more people poured into this region. As a result, Ling Han's gains also began to decline. He stroked his chin, and in the end decided he could not squander more time. So, on the trunk of a tree, he carved, "Ding ergo 1, come and chase your young master." These words were naturally meant for Ding Yuanxin. Ling Han still wished to make use of the other party to temper himself, relying on that man's help to break through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as quickly as possible. As he moved about, he kept carving those words here and there. He believed that with Ding Yuanxin's capabilities, the latter should be able to track him down through the clues he left behind. Hu Niu followed suit and began carving on the tree trunks as well. However, do not be fooled by how pretty and delicate she looked. The characters she carved were crooked and misshapen, yet she still squatted there proudly, carving with glee, completely unembarrassed by her ugly handwriting. Only a single day passed, and sure enough, Ding Yuanxin had caught up. "I cannot deny it. You truly have courage," Ding Yuanxin said coldly, flames of fury burning in his eyes. This youth had killed his younger brother, and now still dared to take the initiative to provoke him. He was practically about to die from the towering rage in his chest. "I'm just so-so, but I'm the second bravest under heaven," Ling Han smiled. "Average, but number 1 in the world," Hu Niu said without the slightest modesty, patting her small chest. "You too," Ding Yuanxin roared in wrath. His figure lunged as he attacked Ling Han and Hu Niu. His spiritual pedestal gleamed, wrapping around him and making him look as though he himself were a deity. Ling Han laughed aloud and drew his sword to meet him. In an instant, 8 streaks of sword qi burst forth. Seeing this, Ding Yuanxin was naturally enraged. This fellow had only managed to obtain that 8th streak of sword qi because of the pressure Ding Yuanxin had exerted. Once he thought of this, it felt as though his whole body were burning with furious flames. Could it be that after tasting success, this brat had once again come to treat him as a whetstone to sharpen his own power? Yet his gaze locked tightly onto the demon birth sword. Previously, he had only known it was a high-level spirit tool, enough to startle him and make his spirit throb. But afterward, when he saw that this sword could actually make the 3 Lives corpse caskets tremble, he, and of course everyone present, understood that the demon birth sword was absolutely not something as ordinary as a level 6 or even a level 7 spirit tool. Who would not covet it? "This sword is mine now!" He let out a cold snort, moving as fast as lightning. Ling Han did everything he could, launching a counterattack against Ding Yuanxin. However, the gap between their cultivation levels was simply too great. Very soon, Ling Han's body was covered in wounds. In some of the deeper gashes, one could even see the white of bone. Fortunately, the indestructible Heaven Scroll was too formidable, allowing him to keep his life force in a shockingly vigorous state. Only when he had lost so much blood that even his vision began to blur did Ling Han finally turn and flee. As he fled, he kept pulling out ginseng and other nourishing medicines, swallowing them like mad. He also circulated the indestructible Heaven Scroll to heal his injuries. As he retreated, he continued to fight. He was not fleeing because he was losing. He exerted himself to the utmost in this battle, but after 3 days, he still reached his limit and had no choice but to duck into the Black Tower. At this time, there was not a single patch of uninjured skin on his body. Even with the circulation of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, the speed at which he was harmed far exceeded the speed at which he could heal, forcing him to have 1 foot already past the boundary of death. He swiftly circulated a drop of the indestructible true fluid to recover. In no time, blood and flesh regrew, and he had completely returned from his prior state. After swallowing several alchemical pills used for cultivation, he crushed a few hundred origin crystals. Instantly, boundless origin power surged to envelop him. He greedily absorbed it, and his cultivation slowly rose. He actually cultivated for 2 full days and nights, and when he ended his cultivation, he had already quietly broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Very good. This sparring partner isn't bad. Perhaps, after another month, not only will I be able to break through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, I might even charge to the peak stage of the 9th layer. Ling Han murmured, utterly unconcerned by how depressed and furious these words would make Ding Yuanxin if he heard them. Let's go find my sparring partner. Ling Han continued leaving messages behind, and Hu Niu also helped leave messages, giggling as she damaged this part of the forest with her hideous writing. Another 2 days passed, and Ding Yuanxin had indeed caught up again. 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ding Yuanxin gasped in shock when his eyes swept over Ling Han, his eyeballs nearly popping out. He was frustrated. This brat had truly taken him as a sparring partner. Not only had he formed his 8th flash of sword chi through constant battle, now he had even broken through to the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he kept fighting this brat, then wouldn't the other party advance toward the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at a terrifying pace, or even directly break into the spiritual pedestal tier? He was genuinely a bit afraid now. Ling Han's battle prowess was far too monstrous. Perhaps once Ling Han entered the spiritual pedestal tier, he would be able to rival Ding Yuanxin. How could Ding Yuanxin endure the thought that he himself had nurtured an opponent capable of killing him? But this brat had killed his younger brother. How could he let him go? Kill. He absolutely had to kill him. At least for now, this brat's strength was still far beneath his. Ding Yuanxin did not know that Ling Han still possessed the Black Tower and held a final trump card that could ensure his survival even in mortal danger. Otherwise, he would certainly turn around and leave at once. It was just like battling Rong Huanshuan. He could always hide inside the 3 lives corpse caskets, and if someone of the Flower Blossom tier at least delivered a palm strike to this spirit tool, he could still be killed by that strike. Do you dare battle me to the death? Ding Yuanxin provoked. Is something wrong with your head? I'm only at the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and you're at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and you want me to fight you to the death? Idiot. Ling Han shook his head, yet still took the initiative to attack. The demonal birth sword was drawn, and sword chi shot forth like rainbows. Just obediently be my sparring partner. Damn you. Ding Yuanxin was unbelievably furious and stepped forward to counter Ling Han's assault. Before, there had been several times he had nearly succeeded in killing Ling Han, so he still had plenty of confidence. If Ling Han were just the tiniest bit unlucky, then he would definitely be able to kill him. Unfortunately, he was always just that tiniest bit short of killing Ling Han. After fighting for 3 days, Ling Han once more entered the Black Tower in a near-death state. After circulating a drop of the indestructible true fluid, he immediately fell unconscious. When he awoke, he hurriedly began to cultivate. His progress could be clearly seen. He had reached the middle stage of the 8th layer. And what was even rarer was that because he had been so close to death this time, he gained a deeper understanding of life and death. Life and death. They were opposites, yet the end of life was death, and the end of death was life. It was an endless cycle, like Taiji 2. This accorded with the Tao of the world. Tao begets one, and one begets two. Order and chaos, life and death, light and darkness. These opposites and cycles could all be traced back to the source. However, Ling Han's present cultivation was still too low. He could only feel stirred, but could not comprehend. He turned these surging thoughts onto the path of the sword, making clear to himself what road he wished to take. Sword Chi and Sword Ray. Anyone could form these two states, but Sword Heart was different. This was a higher level, and it required one to possess his own path. In his previous life, the road the Sword Emperor walked was the road of rulers. The moment he drew his sword, the whole world would bow and crawl before him. The setting sun Saber Emperor walked the road of heartlessness. Without the slightest hesitation, he could cut down even the source of all life, the sun. Then what kind of path should he take? Chapter 418, Path of the Strongest, translator, Dark Angel, editor. Kurisu? It truly was not too early to ponder this question. Before long, he would break through into the spiritual pedestal tier, and once his spiritual pedestal was formed, he would be able to step into the flower blossom tier. At that point, he would cast away his mortal shell. And when that time arrived, cultivators would have genuinely set foot upon the road that seeks Dao. Thus, before he reached the flower blossom tier, there was a need for him to firmly confirm which road he wished to walk. In his previous life, in accordance with the nature of his spirit base, he chose the road of fire. He studied the might of flame and advanced along this path toward the source. A path that took one of the 5 elements, or lightning, such fundamental forces, was also the choice most cultivators would make. Yet what was most common, what was most widely chosen, was often not the strongest choice. Otherwise, the Sword Emperor, the Setting Sun Saber Emperor, and the like would not have chosen to tread wholly different roads. In this lifetime, Ling Han sought to become the strongest, and naturally he could not possibly walk the same road he once had, even if having walked it once would let him stride smoothly and without hindrance all the way to the summit. He still wished to change to another road, a road that could make him even stronger. I want to clash with all opponents that can possibly appear. Whoever blocks my advance, I will defeat. I do not wish to become some ruler perched at the highest seat to be revered by all. That is not something I am willing to become. What I pursue is only to be the strongest, the utmost strongest, capable of defeating any kind of opponent. The path of the strongest. Ling Han rubbed at his chin. Yet the problem was, did such a path truly exist? I must believe in myself. Since I possess this kind of belief, then there must be this kind of path. My sword will cleave all. It will cleave spirit tools, divine tools, able even to shatter the void or to cut down even gods. Ling Han's will was set like iron. He had confirmed it. The road he wanted was the path of the strongest, and his sword was the path of the strongest. At present, he still needed to rely on spirit tools, but when he forged the strongest sword within his heart, then with a single flick of his finger, he could form the strongest sword that could cut all. After he confirmed the road he wished to take, Ling Han's will grew ever more resolute, as if he had been reborn anew. Streams of divine radiance flickered around him, forming a scene that shocked the eye. Yet he soon withdrew his martial intent, returning to appear utterly ordinary. He was drawing closer and closer to returning to his true self. It was as if he were a peerless treasured sword still hidden within its sheath. Only when drawn would it spill 100,000 feet of brilliance that could sever everything. I feel like I've brushed the threshold of the 9th flash of Sword Chi. Ling Han smiled. He had only just decided his future road, and it actually caused his spirit to brighten, letting him gain a great advance upon the sword path. Now should be the time for sparring partner Ding to show his face and give me enough pressure and drive to polish out the 9th flash of Sword Chi. Ling Han left the Black Tower and continued to scatter provoking messages behind him. This time it was even quicker. In merely half a day, Ding Yuanxin had already caught up. You are far too arrogant. Ding Yuanxin ground out through clenched teeth. Last time he had nearly killed this brat, yet not even 2 days had passed, and the fellow was again lively and brimming with vigor, coming to pick a fight with him. This was practically having no fear of death. You're a good person. Ling Han smiled. And Niu thinks you're a good person too. Hu Niu nodded. Ding Yuanxin was nearly driven mad with fury. These two truly treated him as their sparring partner? His gaze fixed on Hu Niu. After so many clashes, he still hadn't managed to kill Ling Han, But this little girl shouldn't be that hard to kill, right? Since Ling Han had killed his younger brother, then he would also kill one of Ling Han's family. Make him taste heartache as well. Die! He sprang forward and charged straight at Hu Nu. Your opponent is Ling Han, not Niu. Hu Nu activated her movement technique and vanished in an instant like a shooting star. Her speed was so swift that Ding Yuan-shin could struck. This was a little monster. This was a little monster. Ding Yuan-shin was stunned. Ling Han was monstrous as well, but at least his monstrosity still lay within a range one could accept. Yet this little snip was so fast that even he could not catch her movements. That was too much. Ding go, you can't catch Niu. Hu Nu cried out proudly, and once more began carving on a tree trunk. Ding Yuan-shin was about to go insane with rage. He had been wondering who it was that had carved his name so hideously. So it was this damn little girl. He turned his glare toward Ling Han, eyes filled with surging flames of fury. Ling Han spread his hands and said, I know the writing is a bit ugly, but you're already so old, so even if it's a bit ugly, it's fine. Anyways, you're not going to use it to seduce any girls. Pfeff! Ding Yuan-shin erupted in anger. Across his entire body, densely packed patterns surfaced, transforming into boundless flames that rolled and surged as they enveloped Ling Han. Ling Han laughed aloud and drew his sword to meet him head-on. In an instant, 8 flashes of sword chi danced, unrestrained. But how terrifying was the battle prowess of a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator with 15 battle stars. Immediately, he was wounded. Under the violent shockwaves, a couple of his bones snapped. Burns bloomed across his body as well. The sight was too horrible to look at. Yet his eyes were still incomparably bright. The path of the strongest did not mean he could never be beaten. Rather, no matter how many times he was defeated, he would rise again, defeat the mighty foe before him, and continue his advance to the summit. With this belief propping him up, the 9th flash of sword chi seemed ready to answer his call. Ding Yuan-shin, after all, was a prodigy, and very quickly sensed the change in Ling Han. He could not help but feel slightly shocked. In his eyes, Ling Han was like a caterpillar that had spun itself into a cocoon. The instant it tore free, it would transform into a magnificent butterfly and display its luxurious beauty. This feeling made him extremely displeased. Could it be that he truly was only fit to be a whetstone, yet unable to kill Ling Han at all? Ling Han forced him into a crisis. The battle prowess of 15 battle stars of the spiritual pedestal tier had already far surpassed his limit, and the outcome of a direct clash was that he would hover on the boundary between life and death. And if it were not for the thunder battle armor still protecting him, and the sturdiness of the body of rock cliff, and the recovery abilities of the indestructible heaven scroll, he did not know how many times he would have already died by now. Yet after innumerable survivals through fatal encounters, it finally transformed into a firm comprehension. Shoo! The 9th flash of sword chi appeared at the same time, dazzlingly brilliant. Ding Yuan-shin cursed loudly. Ling Han had already formed 2 flashes of sword chi from battling with him. A full 2 flashes. One had to know that even he himself only possessed 7 flashes of chi. Yet Ling Han, who had also originally only had 7 flashes of chi, now had an extra 2 flashes. This was the comprehension that a true genius could seize while trapped between life and death. Ling Han raised a thumbs up, and though weak yet brimming with battle spirit, said, I now pronounce you a gold medal sparring partner. Good. Applause. Hu Nu started clapping her small hands from where she stood. Ding Yuan-shin howled toward the heavens in fury. This made him far too indignant. He had come to hunt Ling Han down, kill him, and snatch away the treasures the latter possessed. Who said he was here to be a sparring partner? After howling enough, he finally steadied himself and drew out a spiritual talisman. This time, he would kill Ling Han at any cost. Oh no, Nu, let's flee quickly. Ling Han recognized at a glance that the spiritual talisman was a barbarian bull spiritual talisman, capable of greatly increasing a cultivator's ability. He had already been in tight enough straits at the start, and if he faced a Ding Yuan-shin who had used a barbarian bull spiritual talisman, then merely being brushed by the wind from a strike could shatter even his bones. He had come to find a sparring partner, not to throw away his life. He had already turned and bolted. Hu Nu was even faster. In a few steps, she caught up, hopped onto Ling Han's back, and called out happily, Jia! 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 Run quickly! You too. Ding Yuan Xin gritted his teeth. These two actually dared to joke around right in front of him. He slapped the barbarian bull's spiritual talisman onto his body. Though this was a spiritual talisman used to increase power, it was not the type that increased speed. Still, with a surge in strength, it would raise the user's speed slightly as well. He was truly driven to desperation and would spare no expense just to kill Ling Han.